Alright, so in this video we're going to take a look at making an ensemble average. And so what an ensemble average is that you're averaging together all measurements taken at a specific time over a given period of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this month-long data, which is the grassland data set, and we're going to end up with one average for all measurements made at midnight, one average for all measurements made at 12:30, and then 1 o'clock, so on and so forth. Alright, so what we want to do to start off is we want to make sure, remember we talked about in class, and it's in your assignment as well, that missing observations are flagged with a -999. So we want to remove that from anywhere that we might take an average of, because it's going to skew our average. So we want to use our find and replace. So I'm going to go to Control F and then go to replace, and so -999, and just leave that blank with the replace with. So when we do that, what it's going to do is anywhere where there's -999, it'll just replace it with a blank. And when we take an average over a blank, it'll just ignore it. Excel will just ignore it. So, alright, I made 5 replacements, so I don't have to worry about that now. Alright, so there's a number of different ways to do this efficiently. I'm going to show you one way, and this is the way that I would typically do this. You're welcome to do whatever way works for you as well. Alright, so I'm going to make a new column here beside hour and minute. So what I want to do first is I want to make one value that brings together hour and minute. So it would be 0 for midnight, 0:30 for 12:30, 1:00 for 1 o'clock, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to do that by saying equals the hour column times 100 plus the minutes. And so you'll see what that does in a second when I highlight this and apply it all the way down. So it's going to count up until 23:30 and then start over at 0. Alright, so now we have our time of day all in one column. And so what we can do now, I'm going to use this function called filter. So up in the top here you have a tab that's called data, and so if I highlight this column and I click filter, you'll notice you get a little drop down arrow here. If you click this now allows me to select and only show specific values, so all rows with those specific values in them. So I'm going to turn this all off for a second. I'm going to show you just for 0, just for midnight. So I click OK, and so what you'll notice now, if you go over to the left here, is that it's skipping. It's not showing us the rows in between, and all we're seeing are the rows that correspond to midnight. So we can use this to our advantage when we want to make an ensemble average now. And so I'm going to do this for sensible heat flux. You can apply the same thing for latent heat flux and everything else, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to make a new column. I'm going to call it, I'll just call it QH ensemble. And so what I want to do now is use the average function. And so here's where it's important. I don't want to just drag down, because all the rows that are hidden will still actually be included in that average if I just click down and drag down. So it's going to be a little cumbersome, but what I need to do is hold down Control and manually click all 31 entries here. So this will be the only time you do it though, so that's not so bad. You just have to do it once, and then it's kind of done for you. Okay, so I'll click enter. All right, and so this represents our ensemble average. So if we click on that, you'll see up in the equation bar, the formula bar, that we've averaged over only those specific rows. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my filter, so that drop down arrow. I'm going to select all and turn it all back on. So what I can do at this point now is, if I just drag this down all the way down to the end of the first day, so if I go down to 23:30, what this will represent now is the ensemble average for all of the all of the 12:30, sorry. This will be the average for all the 1 o'clocks. This will be the average of all the 1:30s, 2 o'clocks, so on. So now I have a set of 48 measurements, and each of them are a half an hour, a different half hour of the day. And if you want to just, you can just quickly give us a plot to see if this looks relatively like what you would expect. And this looks like what we see in our textbook. And so this is what we expect, and so we can be happy with that. So if I want to do this to latent heat flux now, this is where it pays off to do it this way. So I'm going to insert a new column, and I'll call this QE ensemble. And I should be able just to copy and paste. No, let's try this again. Copy, paste, and so it should just change the column assignment. So it went from being K to now it's being taking the average of all the same rows, but for column M. So this will now be our latent heat ensemble average. So if I drag this down to 2330, so I now have the latent heat as well, and so I'll just plot that really quickly as well. So you'll apply the same thing to net radiation and to soil heat flux, and this is how you'll make these ensemble average. So there you go. There's the latent heat ensemble average. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free